Welcome to Relocating. I am sitting in a 2-week quarantine because I traveled to Florida to look for properties during a pandemic. We're moving to Florida soon. In fact, we are quickly approaching the T-minus 200 day mark for our move, and this is very exciting for us. And I'm glad you've tuned in to watch our journey. As I have been looking for houses in Florida, I've been introduced to 3 new terms that were somewhat new to me and required some research. If you have ever considered moving to Florida, it's likely you'll consider these 3 terms too. The 3 topics are HOA, CDD, and capital contribution cost. Now, I'm not an expert in this area. I'm just sharing what I learned from my research and from talking to others. As always, consult a qualified real estate agent. There are many gray areas between these 3 topics. I'm going to describe them as if there are hard, fast rules around these topics. In reality, there's a lot of freedom for how they get implemented. So you'll want to check with your community for the specifics that are unique to that area. First, and the easiest one, the capital contribution cost. This is your entry fee to join the HOA. I'll be describing what a HOA is here shortly. The capital contribution cost, or CCC, is a one-time payment when you buy a house, and it could be anywhere from $100 to $1,000 or maybe more. The HOA takes that money and puts it in the bank and will use it to pay for significant repairs. If you are in a neighborhood where the houses keep selling, your HOA will have a significant capital contribution fund. However, if there isn't much turnover, there won't be much available in that fund. Now let's talk about the Community Development District and the Homeowners Association. When you look into buying into a community, it might have or it might not have a homeowners association. If it has a homeowners association, it might or might not have a community development district. These entities are designed to take care of the community. They address the covenants that describe how you can use your property, the services that the community provides, common areas, and infrastructure. I put together this chart that describes the differences. You might have an HOA with or without a CDD. If you have an HOA with no CDD, you are in the column all the way to the right. If you have an HOA with a CDD, that's the middle column. And then the CDD itself is in the left column. Typically, if you have an HOA with a CDD, you'll have a large CDD payment and a small HOA payment. The developer is going to run the HOA until all the properties are sold, and then they'll turn the HOA over to a board that is elected by the community. With the CDD, the developer will run the CDD for a period of time specified in the CDD charter, and it might be 6 years to 10 years. After that point, the CDD is turned over to a board that is elected by the community. Generally speaking, both the CDD and HOA are ran by an elected board. The fees for an HOA are collected by you writing a check to the HOA. The fees for a CDD are collected as part of your normal property tax collection. So your CDD fees are in your tax bill. Suppose your community wants to put in a wave pool or a lazy river. Or suppose the community center roof just fell in. How do these entities raise additional money to cover expenses? A CDD can issue bonds, and those bonds will increase your CDD payments. An HOA can also issue a bond, but an HOA has the power to do other things to raise money. One of those things is called a special assessment. A special assessment is an additional fee that you will have to pay in support of that situation. So if the HOA needs $10,000 to fix the roof, and there's 100 homes in the community, you would all get a $100 special assessment that you have to pay, because $100 times 100 houses is $10,000. So when we consider the HOA and the CDD, who is responsible for what? Well, the CDD is responsible for all the common areas and for the infrastructure. That's the community swimming pool, the clubhouse, the street lights, golf course, tennis courts, playgrounds, dog parks, walking trails, the sign out by the road with the trees or the shrubs around it. That's all CDD. The HOA is responsible for the covenants. Now, a covenant is an agreement that is part of your deed, and it tells how you or your neighbor can use their property. Can they paint their house pink? Leave their garbage at the road all week? Put a shed in the backyard? Not mow their lawn? Have junk cars in the front yard? Figuring all that out is the responsibility of the HOA. The HOA is also responsible for services. Some HOAs will provide cable TV and internet to everybody in the community. They might mow all the lawns, keep up the landscaping, power wash the driveways, or collect up all the trash. So in addition to making sure all the neighbors are maintaining their yards, some HOAs offer some services. Some HOAs offer no services at all, and other HOAs take care of a lot of things. In the case where there is an HOA and no CDD, the HOA must additionally do all the things that a CDD is responsible for. For example, suppose you live in a gated community. The roads in a gated community are private and are not the responsibility of the town, because the town can't get through the gate to get to them. If there's a pothole out in the street, you, as a member of that community, are responsible for it. If the water main breaks, you must fix it. If there's a guard at the gate, you have to pay the guard. And that is all done through these fees. Now, the next item on the chart is a biggie. Who pays for the community development? When a home developer creates a new community, they have to prepare the land by plowing it, grading it, putting in roads, sidewalks, street lamps, storm drains, sewer lines, water lines, electrical, and on and on. They also have to develop all the common areas, like the parks, golf courses, and community pools. This is very expensive, so the home developers take out a loan and pay the loan back over time as they sell houses in the community. With a CDD, the developer can shift the responsibility of paying that loan to the people that live in the community. Instead of the developer charging more money for every house in order to pay for the loan, the developer can charge less for the house, and the community members pay for the loan. The loan is typically a bond and is paid across 15 to 30 years. Now, not every builder uses CDD. Some builders still pay for the development of the community themselves. But in the communities that have CDD, you should expect the houses to be a little cheaper. Now, I want you to think of the CDD as having two aspects. It is the initial bond payment for the community, and then it is the maintenance of the community, the maintenance of the common areas and the infrastructure that the bond paid to put in. So, are your payments to the HOA and CDD tax deductible? No. There's one caveat. If this is a rental property and it's not your primary home, you can deduct the HOA. But the reason I bring up this topic is because your CDD fees are collected in your property tax bill, and your property tax is deductible. So at tax time, you have to remember to subtract your CDD fees from your property tax, or else you're going to get a man from the IRS knocking on your door. Where do these entities get their authority? The CDD gets its authority from law, and it's a public government body. The HOA, on the other hand, gets its authority from your deed, which provides an agreement to abide by the HOA rules. Now, if you piss off the HOA by breaking rules, they might add fines to your HOA bill. If you refuse to pay your HOA bill, they can foreclose on your house within 45 to 90 days. There have been cases of actual foreclosures over a $100 disagreement. So bottom line, CDD, if you have it, takes care of the initial construction bond and the maintenance of the common areas in the infrastructure. The HOA takes care of the covenants and services. And if you don't have a CDD, the HOA takes care of everything. Now that we know the difference between a CDD and an HOA, let's dive a little deeper into each one. Suppose your community is paying off its construction bond and they decide they want to add a lazy river. The CDD can build the lazy river using a new bond, and then your CDD fee increases to cover the expense of the new bond. What kinds of things can a CDD do? They can do water management supply, bridges and culverts, roads and streetlights, public transportation and parking, environmental contamination remediation, conservation areas, parks, recreation facilities, fire prevention and control, which I think means if you've got a large enough community, you can have your fire department. They can do school buildings, community security. Now that's not police. Community security could be the security guard at the gate or maybe somebody driving around the community. They can do waste collection and disposal, mosquito control, and the list goes on and on. Now what happens if you buy into a community that has a CDD and the properties don't sell? If there aren't enough homeowners to pay the bond will go into default and the investors will foreclose on the development. They will take ownership of the unsold lands and everything the CDD owns, and they could do almost anything they want with it. Therefore, before buying into a community that has a CDD, make sure you're confident that community will sell out. What happens when the initial bond gets paid off? Remember, the bonds are typically 15 to 30 years. When that bond gets paid off, that portion of your CDD fee on your property taxes will go away. Your CDD fee will decrease. The CDD fee will not, completely go away because remember, the CDD is responsible for two things: the initial bond and the maintenance of the common areas and the infrastructure. You still have to pay for that maintenance. Now let's talk about HOA. The HOA is your way to control your neighbors, but it's also your neighbor's way to control you. You might be told you can't put that shed in your backyard, or you can install a fence, but the fence has to look a certain way, be a certain color, and be made out of a certain material. They might tell you that you cannot have a palm tree in your front yard. And they might tow away your car if you park it on the street and one tire is touching the grass by just 2 inches. And that actually happened to somebody. Before you buy into a neighborhood that has an HOA, you want to read through the HOA documents. Now the documents are going to be dry and boring, but force yourself to go through it so that you fully understand what you're getting yourself into. If you can't live with that HOA agreement, don't buy into the community. Even if it's your dream house, don't buy into the community. Don't think you're going to buy into the community and change the community. It won't happen. Or that you'll be able to ignore a couple of the things that you disagree with. Go into the HOA agreement with your eyes wide open. Something else to know. When you buy a house in Florida, you often have to prepay many of these fees. You'll often prepay the HOA fee for 3 months and the CDD fees maybe for 15 months. That can be a lot of additional cash you need to bring with you at closing time, so make sure you check that out. Now you know the difference between a CDD and an HOA. I hope that was helpful, and thank you for checking this out and spending some time with me.